Tonight we'll look at part 1 of Unit 3, which is consciousness, and we're going to look deeper into dreams. So, what are your dreams? What do they mean? Why do you have them? This is a pretty difficult discussion because it's hard to be scientific about it. Until they were able to look at brain waves and measure those with EEGs, you weren't really able to tell much about what the sleeping person was doing, other than maybe when they've woken up to say, were you dreaming and what was it about and what were you experiencing? Our dreams are kind of insane sometimes. There's some pretty wild things that we'll dream about, but they don't necessarily mean anything. And you certainly wouldn't see this on an AP test because it's very difficult to be scientific about it. But there are some things about dreams you might see. So, especially some of the theories on dreams and how they're formed and why they may happen. So let's look at a few things here. Dreams are just a sequence of images and emotions and thoughts that are passing through a sleeping person's mind. And we're all familiar with those. And when you wake up and you remember a dream and you can kind of recreate a story of it, that's called the manifest content. The latent content is the underlying meaning of the dream. So that's a little different. You may dream that your hair was on fire. I don't know, that's a weird dream. Maybe that doesn't mean that your hair is actually hot or going to catch on fire. Maybe it means that you're running around all day like your hair is on fire and you need to stop, you need to slow down, and you need to enjoy life a little bit more. So let's look at these pictures here. There are sometimes words that appear in dreams, and I guess the word dreams could too. Is the picture at the top right there with a person climbing a ladder going to this white box at the top. Is that a manifest or latent version of the content? Is the person at the bottom right, is this person falling or flying? Is it manifest or latent context? And same with the guy on the left at the bottom. Is he flying? It looks more like he's flying than falling. But I think with any of these images, you'd have to hear the person discuss them and talk about them. If you're saying that the top right image is that a person's climbing the corporate ladder and that's your latent content, what you can get out of it, the manifest is like a manifest of a ship. It's like a log or a captain's log or a ship, and it says who's on board, what's on board, and what things are on the ship or the plane. And that's just a list of things. The latent content would be you explaining the dream. Here are a couple more images. At the bottom is a picture of a woman. She's dreaming, and in her dream, she's dreaming of some strange things. A telephone, lightning bolt, a dog running, a bird in the sky, a $3 sailboat, and it says at the bottom, for latent content, see your psychiatrist, with a little asterisk there at the bottom of it, kind of telling her within her dream that, yeah, this isn't going to make sense. You're going to have to probably talk to a psychiatrist about it. That's what they're there for and counselors are there for. A psychoanalytic person who sort of has that side of their psychological mindset. If they favor Freudian concepts or Jungian concepts, they may look into dreams and try very much to determine what might be happening in your unconscious mind, or what maybe you don't really want to share openly, but is deep down inside. Maybe that's causing some of the behavior problems that you're having. So again, like if you look at the image at the top left with a man walking a tightrope over the city, maybe it's the latent content that he's walking the tightrope and he feels like he's having trouble balancing work and home life. But maybe he doesn't report that. Maybe his dream, the manifest of his dream, was seeing cars rushing by below his window And as he's discussing it, maybe this is what the psychiatrist is pulling out of it, saying maybe this is your unconscious telling yourself that you need to be careful because you may be getting out of balance with your life. Everybody's different, and honestly, I'm not sure that your dreams mean a whole lot, but there are also a whole lot of people who would love to take your money to talk about it. But obviously, if you have a recurring dream or nightmares or something that's causing you difficulty in getting your rest, that potentially is absolutely something you need to talk to someone about. But why do we dream? This is a great question. It's a difficult question. Some people look at it more in a scientific way. And of course, Freud said that that's a place where your unconscious thoughts or repressed emotional baggage would flow out of. We talked sleep stages before as well, so it's something to keep in mind as we're looking here. But content of one's dreams may be affected by their gender. If they're boy or girl, man or woman, they tend to have a little bit different slant on their dreams. Life events and external stimuli will definitely show up during dreams. It's what we're experiencing in real life that typically does show up. If you don't have any concept of a Russian submarine, and you've never come across one or even knew that they had them, it would be difficult for you to ever experience it. Like somebody in Africa who lives in sub-Saharan Africa experiencing what a Rubik's Cube is, or what the Houston Texans are as a football team. Let's skip the Texans for today. This hasn't been a good week for them. But there are variations across cultures in dream, recall, content, and interpretation. And that's what I was hinting to in the last one there, in the last point, that culturally, your dreams are going to signal the kinds of things that you socially and culturally are aware of. It's pretty difficult for your mind to come up with things that don't exist in your everyday life. They may stretch those things. They may be very different than what you're used to interpreting them as or seeing them as, but they're not going to appear in your dreams. Like, you're not going to all of a sudden be speaking a different language potentially, or having a different culture. So what do we dream about most often? I do dream about my dog sometimes, and this is number 7 on a list of 7 common dreams. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, but I wanted to discuss it a little bit because this is more of the fun part of dreams. Obviously, it's not going to be in your test, and this is not going to be the AP test. There's a little nugget here, a little something to think about. And I did a little bit of research. I found this mirrored on a couple different websites, but dogs are dreamed of the most as far as an animal is concerned, and they've done lots of sleep studies and dream studies, and they've seen dogs pop up quite a lot. Most people think, and therapists and psychiatrists and dream researchers think this probably due to the fact that the loyalty and friendship of a dog is so important. And I'm someone who definitely benefits from that best friend relationship. But because of this, dogs in our dreams have come to represent our own loyalty towards someone as well as someone else's loyalty towards us. So it might not have anything to do with your dog, but maybe you're struggling with a friend's relationship, and maybe you feel like they're not spending time with you anymore, or they think they're too important for you, and so that's upsetting to you. That might be showing up in your dreams. So it's good to think of this. If you have a dream that focuses on your dog, maybe it's a good idea to start focusing on your relationships. Okay, that might be just a tip off. We also dream about driving quite a bit. Let's take a second to look at the image at the bottom, and that's scary looking. But this person avoids the wreck. I mean, maybe you're driving in your dream and you're avoiding wrecks and avoiding wrecks and avoiding wrecks, and it's happening over and over. Some people dream about monotonous things. They're driving down a street that leads to nowhere, but they're going through red lights, or they have to stop at constant red lights. Your there are some dream theories that think that this is part of problem resolution, where you're going to go through these processes while you're dreaming to be able to then deal with it in the real world. But cars can be a commentary on how you're maneuvering through your life and how well are you reaching particular goals. Are you showing a lot of drive or motivation to reach those goals? It's important to note and to pay attention to whether you're the person behind the wheel or not. If you're not, maybe you feel like you're not in control of your life. The specifics of dreams, such as the type or condition of the car and the condition of the road and how well you're driving, those are all things to zero in on. And of course, it could mean nothing too, but it could be your subconscious or unconscious brain just kind of cluing in on the universe around you. But crashing is a common element in the car dream. It often means that some direction your life's been heading in has come to a sudden messy stop, and losing your car or having it stolen suggests you've either lost your drive to continue or you're feeling directionless in your life. It's kind of interesting. Storms are sometimes brought up in dreams, and so are lots of phobias. A lot of people are afraid of tornadoes, and probably rightfully so. Weather is big in dreams, and they're usually tied, most dream researchers believe. Speaking of a dream, my dog just woke up from a dream. Hang on one second. Alright. He probably heard me and started barking, thinking somebody was out here. So in his dream right now, he's like, oh, there's a twister, and there are tornadoes, and somebody's in the house, and that's the only time he ever barks is when he's dreaming. But the tornado represents worry and anxiety that is beginning to spin out of control. So people who frequently get into the tornado dream are also proud card-carrying members of the Worry Wart Club, is the research that I did on this. So worry and anxiety may be a force in your life. What's another one? Teeth falling out. And I've had this dream myself, and I've never really thought about what it meant. But your teeth being ground down or popping out of your mouth, it's just a terrible sensation. And I have thought maybe that this is like a Freudian thing, that deep in our childhood experience, when you're going through that stage where you are losing teeth and you've got that hole or recess in your mouth and you're like, oh, it's just so gross and you don't like it. If you ever go to the dentist and they do work on your teeth, it's the same kind of thing. Your mouth takes a while to get used to it. But typically anything having to do with the mouth in a dream can be connected to the way you're communicating in life. So maybe at the point in time where I was having that dream, I was having trouble getting my point across, whether it's at work or with my spouse or wife or with some friends or family. It does say, so if you have a dream where your teeth are falling out, it's a good indication that you have allowed something out of your mouth that should not have come out of there, like your teeth shouldn't fall out. So maybe the comment shouldn't have come out of your mouth that you made in vain or in jest or in a way that might cause someone some pain. So certain things aren't meant to come out of your mouth, like your teeth speak before they think, and then they often regret it. Those people may have these kinds of dreams. How about this one? You got Billy Madison at the top, if you've ever seen that movie. At the bottom, Rodney Dangerfield, rest in peace, Rodney, who was in a movie called Back to School. It's an old long ago movie. Both of these probably are. But they dreamt about being back at school. This is very, very familiar. If you were in 9th grade, you probably had dreams of being back in 8th grade. When you go to college, you almost certainly will have dreams about being a high school student again. I used to dream about going back to high school or just being a high school person again, but being really good in football. Because now, I know all these tricks that I'm learning in college, and maybe I'm now suddenly very popular in high school and I hadn't been before. Those kinds of things pop up for people's dreams, but there's tons of variations on this one. You can't find your class. I've had that happen to me, where I missed a final exam. You have to take your senior year all over again. There's a test you didn't know about. But why would people have those kinds of dreams when they're later an adult? And I've had those some. The school dream's common because it's connected to your job or your career. And they don't really get into this. But to me, this may mean that you're thinking too much about your job or your career and you're trying too hard. Sometimes you have to let these things come to you, and you have to work and not stress about that next promotion or what's coming down the road. But all of these stresses that you're experiencing in the work world or college, or you take a summer job or something and you're far away from school, but you may start having dreams about Mr. Perkins giving you a tardy, or a principal coming down on you about work that you have to do. Maybe that's just a way to kind of recognize those stresses in your life. Dreams about people being chased or you're being chased are really interesting. No matter what or whom is hot on our heels in a dream, the being chased dream means you're avoiding something in your waking life. People who get this dream frequently tend to avoid confrontation or try to get out of obligations or run away from their issues rather than dealing with them head on. So that's an interesting one, and I've never really heard about that before I did this research. Here's a good one. It's number 1. Your mate or your wife or your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend is cheating. And this is a powerful one. And Mrs. Duez had this happen with her. She's woken up and had terrible thoughts about Sandra Bullock there, because for some reason she thought that she would be interested in me, and that probably would never happen. And I would have no interest in her either. But Mrs. Duez can't even watch her in a movie. She can't stand her. She holds this grudge. It was very powerful for her. Now, why? The cheating dream is rarely a good one that is tipping you off to what's really happening in real life. So don't flip out if you have this dream and just consider the fact that your significant other is absolutely cheating on you, and now you have proof because you had a dream about it. I was pretty upset because I didn't do anything. I did nothing. I was just lying there sleeping, and now she's beating on me with her fist, all mad at me. So what was going on? It might mean that there's a third wheel in the relationship, but it's not necessarily another person, but rather a thing. You're having this dream because you're feeling like your mate is giving too much time and attention to something else when they should be giving it to you. So usually the culprit's work. It could also be Xbox or golf or fantasy football, and for men, it could be the new baby. And that's an interesting one. I don't think I've ever had these kinds of dreams, maybe because I have lots of faith in Mrs. Duez, right? But I do remember feeling some jealousy because of my son and my wife. I was like, hello, I'm still around. Don't forget about me. I do like the bottom one where it says, wife asks, is it real life? I thought it was just fantasy. My response, I'm caught in a landslide. No escape from reality. Rest in peace there, Freddie Mercury. Vsauce, Why We Dream. I think we saw this in class. If we didn't, definitely watch it. Or if you were absent that day, it gives you lots of good tips here on what dreaming is really all about. So let's get into some theories. Freud's theory, which is usually not based on science at all, is wish fulfillment. He believes that dreams are the key to understand our inner conflicts, as we have discussed, the ideas and thoughts that are hidden in our unconscious, and he was the one that kind of coined and focused in on these terms of manifest and latent content. Freud argued that the purpose of dreams was wish fulfillment. So you may be having a dream like you're crashing your car, and it's a sports car, because you really want to let the id out of you. You want to run and you want to go crazy, but maybe the car is crashing in your dream because that's the super ego holding you back and saying you're not supposed to do that, and I told you you'd crash. You don't listen. That those two angels, the angel and devil on either shoulder, kind of telling you go, 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 and stop, stop, stop. So that's part of it, but he's written, and people have written books about his interpretation of dreams. There's also the information processing theory. This is a really interesting one. It's where, and we'll look at this with memory in the next unit, where your dreams act to sort of sort out the memories of the day that you experience, and that REM sleep does increase after stressful events. The people who think the information processing theory is a good one state that that's just evidence of that, because you're going to be in REM sleep, which must be processing events and turning them into memories. Dreams of the price of tuna, the information for an exam, new karate movie, traffic jam at noon that you got caught in, a date on Saturday, the dentist appointment, or phone number. Now, once you process all that through your brain in your sleep, you may only retain things that are most important. Maybe this is your brain trying to siphon or discover, categorize what's most important. So the new karate move for this lady is important. The information for the exam or the date on Saturday that she needs to remember. But she's going to forget things like the price of tuna and the traffic jam at noon, which may not be very important. May only happen once. The problem-solving dream theory is another really good one, and that one works like this. This is Rosalind Carter's dream theory. The dreamers sort through and accept emotions associated with yesterday's misfortunes and problems that have happened. And Cartwright conducted studies linking dreaming to the emotional state of waking. And they're comparing those. And a number of researchers think that dreams are really there to help us solve problems. One particular scientist named Fiss argued that our dreams help us to register very subtle hints that go unnoticed during the day, which is one reason why people say you should probably sleep on it. Unfortunately, there are also arguments against this theory of dreaming. For start, why would people only remember a very small number of their dreams? If we're problem solving, you would think you would want to remember all these things. Well, so if our dreams contain important answers, why don't we remember what they were, or even remember the dream at all? Then there's the activation synthesis hypothesis. This is Hobson and McCarley, and they teamed up to come up with this theory where the hypothesis is there. When we dream, our brain's awake as if we were awake. It's as active as if we were awake. It's moving and processing. The EKG is flashing and not in those big, long, slow movements, but the quick movements of normal brain activity when we're awake. Dreams may be a way for us to make sense of the neural activity that's happening. And this is sort of a reptilian evolutionary brain type situation too, because the spontaneous firing of neurons in the pons area of the brain, that more basic functions of the brain, it's firing up into there. And what's happening in the cerebral cortex, well, it's kind of turned off. There's some information processing going on, but the real bulk of the decision making is not. So they believe that we synthesize these images and sensations and experiences that are flashing through our brains in neural impulses. We synthesize that down into a dream. We create the dream, either as that's happening or after we're done having all that experience and we wake up and go, oh, this happened and that happened and this happened. I can kind of sense this one because you may have had this happen to you before. You wake up from a dream and there's somebody in the room and you're telling them, oh, this is amazing, I tell you about this dream. And you're starting to tell them about it, and as you're waking up and telling them, it's gone. Like this really strong, incredible dream has now disappeared. Maybe there wasn't anything there in the first place. I don't know. It's an interesting theory. REM rebound is really interesting. This is going to happen while you're dreaming, because REM is an area where you could dream more. It's a tendency for REM sleep to increase following REM sleep deprivation. And remember our friend who went 8 days without sleep, he went into some REM rebound. He slept for, I think it was 24 straight hours, didn't he? When people have been prevented from experiencing REM, they'll take less time than usual to attain the REM state. They'll jump into it quicker. So common to those who take certain sleeping aids. It is also often seen that in the first few nights after patients with sleep apnea are placed on CPAP, it's a drug. Alcohol can also have an impact on REM sleep, and it suppresses during the first half of the night, leading to rebound or 4 to 5 hours after the onset of sleep. So it's going to be kind of delayed. What will happen if you don't get a good night's sleep for at least like a week? Well, it goes like this. The research tells us then you'll sleep for 10 hours. Well, if you do sleep for 10 hours to catch up, you will dream an awful lot during that 10-hour period. So teen dreams, this is an interesting one. David K. Randall wrote a book about this that highlights the impact of a particular school in Edina, Minnesota. And what they found was that a lack of sleep affects the teenage brain in similar ways to the adult brain, only more so. So chronic sleep deprivation in adolescence diminishes the brain's ability to learn new information. And it diminishes it more than an adult would be diminished. It leads to emotional issues like depression and anger, and aggression. And researchers can now see that problems would arise as a cause of this. It's not a side effect. A cause of sleep deprivation, a cause or function of teenage depression. So in one study by researchers at Columbia University, teens who went to bed at 10 p.m. or earlier were less likely to suffer from depression or suicidal thoughts than those who regularly stayed awake after midnight, which we're closing in on here tonight. It's 11:44. Should school start much later? That's the question here for you. Instead of beginning school at around 7:15, 7:20, should we move it back to 8:40 a.m.? A whole lot of students would say yes, but then you have to consider that the school day is going to run a little bit longer. Maybe that's a good thing. Dreamland: Adventures in the Strange Science of Sleep is David Randall's book with the pillow on it. And here's what happened. Despite the fears of some parents, teenagers did, in fact, spend their extra hour sleeping. As you can imagine, that's probably what you would do. And reported that they came to school feeling rested and alert. At the same time, the number of on-campus fights fell, and fewer students reported feeling depressed to their counselors, and the dropout rate slowed. It didn't completely end, but it did slow. Coaches pushed back practice times until later in the afternoon, and participation did not suffer. The results were also quantifiable this way. The average SAT score for the top 10% of Edina students rose from 1288 to 1500 out of 1600. That's pretty awesome. That's a really good score. And that's following the implementation of the new schedule. So even the head of the college board at the time, the institution behind the ominously familiar standardized test called the SAT and the PSAT, they're also behind the AAP test. But they proclaimed that the results were truly flabbergasting, that they were amazed by this. Now, I've asked people in our district and our superintendent, personally asked them, why do we have a school day for high school students that starts at 7:20 or 7:15 when we know brain science tells us that that's not the best time for them to learn? And the ideas that I get back from people are UIL, which is athletics, and then also, and I love athletics, but come on, that's ridiculous. And also because parents want their older kids to be home early so they'll let the younger kids home from school. But I'm curious how many single parent kids we're going to be seeing coming up. I think there are going to be quite a few. My son has 2 or 3 friends who are only children. I think I said single parent, but I meant single child families. So if you're that kind of person, what happened for the older kid? There's nobody sitting there waiting for him when he was coming home from school. So it just seems like both of those arguments are kind of strange. Students and other teachers have said, oh, it's bus schedules. Not really, because you could just move the bus schedules around. I don't know why you wouldn't have even the younger kids starting earlier, where you can be sure they get a good meal in their stomach before the day started. But hey, they don't ask me these questions. They don't ask me to solve them. Inception is a movie you can watch for extra credit. I think after going through consciousness and really learning this stuff, this might really help, because it's such a complicated and strange movie that watching this may, I don't know, after you've studied psychology some, may come into play. It's a silly movie. It's fun. It's different. But every time I watch it, I seem to learn a little bit more from it. But it does have to do with dreams and being able to insert yourself into a dream and then change someone's opinion about something based upon just trying to plant that thought. Or that's what the inception is about. The point of inception of giving someone an original thought, or what they think is an original thought. So, let's back you back up to the beginning here. Hopefully you've learned some things about dreams tonight. And remember that although this is very interesting stuff, and we're all interested to talk about dreams like crazy, and I have talked probably too long on dreams. 30 minutes is a lot for dreams. It was a little bit of fun. Hopefully you learned some things. But as far as the AP test is concerned, there's going to be not very many questions on dreams. Maybe 1 out of 100. So don't be like studying consciousness like crazy for the AP test. Reviewing certain concepts is good. I think looking at drugs, neural uptake, all that sort of thing, fantastically good. Sleep cycles, like sleep stages, some of the research methods used to determine what the theories are based upon dreaming or sleep, the sleep disorders like sleep apnea, narcolepsy, sleepwalking, or somnambulism. You get the idea. Night terrors. You get the idea here. Those are things you can hang your hat on, but the interpretation of dreams is much more difficult. So don't spend your time trying to figure that out and think on the AP test or one of my tests that we're going to ask you to interpret someone's dreams. It's much more scientific than that. So that's all I've got for you tonight. I hope you have a good one, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget to be awesome.